Oh, you are here already. I didn't think you came so early. I did expect you, just not at this time. I was still practicing something that we might need tonight. I actually own this equipment from my days at the Order of Hermes, and I still know how to use things, even though I have to use them differently now. And I think I will just tell you about blood magic tonight. However, don't forget that it is I, or Carisper, your guide in the Sanguine Archives, in which we explore the lore of the world of darkness from a perspective often the focus on vampires, mainly Clan Baali, who you owe big time, but we will come to that later. Let's just begin our tour for tonight through the memories of the blood. Follow me, and in this night's venture I will actually tell you more about Dark Thaumaturgy. We have already briefly touched on blood sorcery in general, and discovered that there's different types of it. The Assamites have a type of blood sorcery that's not too different to Thaumaturgy, though different enough that you can't just learn it like you would Thaumaturgy. The Krynas of the Kolduns and Koldunic sorcery are also kind of blood sorcery, though it doesn't require blood, but Thaumaturgy is the blood sorcery. It's what makes Clan Tremere so powerful. It is what makes us so powerful. You see, Thaumaturgy is based on the Order of Hermes teachings that the Tremere kind of converted to be used with their vampiric blood. So if you know some hermetic magic, it definitely helps, but you can learn it from scratch as well. Thaumaturgy can be taught and learned, and all you really need to is the ability to use vampiric blood, have vampiric blood, of course, have some control over it. You can learn rituals that require it, and those rituals, if performed correctly, will always work and have the same result. Unlike the real magic of mages, Thaumaturgy is kind of fixed and static. You can find and create new paths with it if you are very experienced and take a lot of time to do so. So in that regard, the power is just as unlimited as real magic would be. However, once you have written down a path, the blood will always use those powers. If you can say summon a fireball with blood magic, it will never fail. It will never cause paradox, but it will always be the same fireball. And just because you can cast a fireball with blood magic doesn't mean that you can throw a bolt of lightning. A real mage would be able to. You won't be, unless you learn another path that allows you to throw lightning. And sadly there isn't a single path that deals with frost and ice. Well, not one that the Tremere know at least, but that's for another lesson. Thaumaturgy has many paths that you can learn, each taking a lot of time and effort to master them, each coming with different powers. And there's so many, it's really tough to just count them all. The basic one that every thaumaturge starts off with is the path of blood, which allows you to throw your own blood as a kind of magical damaging missile return to you. You can make someone puke blood and force the blood into your mouth so you can feed from a distance, which is of course an obvious break of the masquerade. You can make the blood inside someone boil and make them explode. You can force the blood through your skin out of yourself, becoming hard, forming a shield of blood around you, protecting you from harm, and so on and so forth. However, we are not speaking about regular Thaumaturgy tonight, because every Tremere can teach you about that. Every Tremere has that. No. We are going to speak about the Clan Baali kind of exclusive speciality of Dark Thaumaturgy. Now, for the beginning, it's not really exclusively for Clan Baali. In theory, any infernalist vampire can learn it, as Dark Thaumaturgy is taught by demons. However, Clan Baali is the only clan that first of all knows which demons to summon, because not all will teach you, not all can teach you, not all will be friendly enough. We also know how to make the pacts and the contracts needed and not be completely cheated by the demons. We also know how to teach it properly and can aid one another in learning it, given the demons permit it. We have definitely the monopoly on Dark Thaumaturgy. There is some Infernalists that learn it as well, but that is extremely difficult to pull off, while most Baali can have Dark Thaumaturgy. First of all, it's called Dark Thaumaturgy for a reason. It is Thaumaturgy, and if you learn Dark Thaumaturgy, you learn Thaumaturgy as well. It's basically the same discipline. You can, however, learn thaumaturgical paths when you learn Dark Thaumaturgy. It's basically the same. However, if you learn Thaumaturgy only, you can never learn Dark Thaumaturgy unless you make a pact and learn it by a demonic instructor. Which means that Tremere usually do not have Dark Thaumaturgy unless they are on their path to becoming Baali or already Baali, just posing as Tremere, like it is with the Order of the Worm. Dark Thaumaturgy is so special because its powers come from demons, just as they do from your blood. The rituals that you learn just function like thaumaturgical ones. And the blood functions the same as well. It's basically the same as Thaumaturgy, which means that all the paths of Thaumaturgy are open to you if you have the time to learn them. Dark Thaumaturgy, however, is gained by pacts. It's cost dependent on your bargaining skill. The service and the souls that you have to pay, as I mentioned, let others pay for it. The costs are as high as you manage to get away with. The special thing about Dark Thaumaturgical paths is that they come at an additional cost, depending on the path that you choose, usually a very nasty side effect, so not all paths might be worth taking. But let's just go in there and start with the paths. The first one I want to speak about is called the Fires of Inferno. There is a similar path in normal, regular Thaumaturgy called the Path of Flame, which obviously lets you summon fire, which is very useful for a vampire. The Fires of Inferno, though, do not conjure up regular flames and fire, but green bale fire from Malpheus, I mean hell, that burns. Just like normal fire, with a caveat. It's cold to the touch. It is actually freezing water and liquids, it's freezing blood, and it's only soakable by magical means. A suit that protects from fire won't protect you from that. Balefire is also very powerful in killing vampires, as it's even more damaging than regular flames, and it can't be stopped by normal means. Balefire can even burn on walls and stone and turn them into brittle little powder. It annihilates absolutely everything it comes in contact with. The more potent you are with this path, the more powerful the flames that you can conjure. However, there is a caveat to this. If you learn the path of balefire, you will actually have visible green balefire in your aura. Luckily, only kindred, I mean vampires with auspex, will be able to see that, and most of them will not know what green fire in your aura means. However, they will know that it's suspicious and unnormal, which makes you stick out, which you don't want to be. However, it is the ultimate vampire killer, so the Fires of Inferno are something you should learn. It's also absolutely fantastic to deal with werewolves. And if you pose as a Tremere old clan Tzimisce, you can easily explain the balefire in your aura as a magical accident. The Path of Phobos. Now that's one that is a bit special. The Path of Phobos allows you to conjure up fears of your victim and let them have the most horrific nightmares of them come true. It will also have a side effect on you though, which is that you will have nightmares while you lie in torpor or just sleeping during the day. I personally came to love my nightmares though, and while nightmares sounds very bad, and yeah, it might impact regeneration because sometimes they just make you wake up in bloody sweat in the middle of the night, which is a bit uncomfortable and you have to change the sheets so often, but the nightmares are kind of worth it. I like mine. Like once I was hunted down by a three-headed dragon, and first I ran in panic, road check almost. But then I remembered I have thaumaturgy, so I used blood boil on the dragon and it exploded in such a delicious fountain of blood. So refreshing. There was another night where I dreamt I was immortal again and was stabbed by my former wife, which I previously in the dream killed with a headshot. Bullet went right through, she was dead, and then she stabbed me with a knife. And I was sitting there fully conscious in my dream and I'm like, come on, can't my nightmares be a bit more convincing? Like, I just shot her, she's dead, how can she even raise her arm or anything? Secondly, I held her arm, so how could she overpower me? She was quite a weak woman, and yet she managed to stab me, which, again, I'm a vampire, it shouldn't really bother me, but I died. And there I was, in bloody sweat, in my bed, and I was just mad at my logic, that my brain was messed up, you could say. It was just so terrible. Ugh. It wasn't that I was afraid, it was still kind of a nightmare because the logic was just so flawed. I'm mad at myself. Some nightmares can be quite interesting though. Anyway, to the powers that it gives you. You can induce fear and cause paranoia with just little understanding of the path, which can be very useful on mortals and immortals alike. Well, immortals, I mean mainly vampires. You can make them pee themselves with blood, kinda, which is very amusing. But making them feel paranoia is the even more powerful way to wield this, as it makes them way more suspicious of other vampires, which is especially helpful if used on a prince or someone in power that you want to be removed, as the paranoia will make them act in horrendous ways that the Primogen and other kindred cannot tolerate. With a bit more understanding you gain the ability to spook others from a distance. More importantly, you can feel them the unavoidable dread of going to hell, making them kinda catatonic. With more understanding you gain the ability to summon up illusions, similar to what the Ravnus can do, of the greatest fears of your victim, which usually leaves them incapacitated and unable to really do anything else but run. Become even better, and you can summon up the worst fears so visually correct that your target, even if it's a vampire, will just go completely stiff, catatonic and unable to defend themselves. Which is so nice. You can actually make them fall into torpor or road trek. But the highest understanding of this path is the one that I would suggest you learn quickly, because it allows you to transmute fear into a black substance similar to vitate that you can feed off. Similar enough to blood that you gain sustenance from it. You can feed and leech off people's fear, which is very nice if you don't want to drink so much blood or you don't have access to it. And then there's the path of taking the spirit. It actually allows you to sap willpower from your victims. The more powerful you become, the more willpower you can drain and leech. It's not only really useful to replenish your own willpower and get yourself going. However, it's even more important to make your victims so much less powerful to resist what else you want to do with them. And there is the path of, I should just say, if you use this path you become a megalomaniac. You will become very arrogant. That's that though, which Baali isn't. Let's be serious here. The path of pain. The interesting part about this is that you actually become addicted to pain yourself, a true masochist.
So there is some ways to deal with this. I, as example, used to put sharp nails or stones in my shoes so that I have the pain while just doing my everyday business. It's not too hindering. However, these days I discovered something better. It's a absolutely fabulous device of modern technology. It's so painful. And yet it doesn't really damage you, unlike the nails. It's perfect. It's a device from hell. It's even given to children. It's called Lego. Put some of those Lego bricks in your shoes. Delightful. Anyway, the powers that this path grants you are interesting. With a little understanding, you can use the numbing power, which desensitizes you to pain, which you should use if pain is distracting you. Now you can't use it all the time, of course, because you kind of want to have this sweet little pain, but it will definitely help in combat. With more understanding, you gain the power to cause pain to people near you. First mortals, with more understanding, even vampires, which is extremely useful because someone who is feeling sun-sharp pain anywhere you want in their body will absolutely ruin their ability to fight back. With more understanding of this path, you gain the ability to shatter bones and rupture organs if they still are there. That also goes for hearts for vampires, by the way. If you can rupture a heart, you send the victim into torpor. I mean, if it's a vampire. If it's a mortal, he's dead, of course. And you can do this from a distance, which is very nice. But even better is the next power this path unlocks if you have enough understanding, which is the agony within. It causes blood cells to become hooked with spikes, shredding arteries inside the body, which is of course absolutely lethal to mortals and will kill them rather quickly as they bleed out internally. But it's even better for vampires, because every time they use their blood for discipline, they will feel insane, maddening, sharp pain everywhere in their entire body, as if they were on fire, sending them into road trek or even torpor, while simultaneously damaging them from the inside, which means they can't even do anything to prevent it. It's almost better than the final power of this path, the death of 1,000 cuts, which basically allows you to reopen already healed wounds, which is deadly enough for a mortal, but just imagine how many wounds elder vampires had during their existence, and you can just make all of them appear again in an instant, which very likely will turn into ash rather quickly. The next path is the path of pleasure. Now, as the name suggests, it is something more pleasurable than the former path. You can induce lust and pleasure in others, but at the cost of your beast becoming much stronger and so much tougher to resist. It's a power that I love to use on myself in order to get something out of sexual encounters that you might have to do from time to time in order to forge alliances or break them, or more importantly, convince others that you are actually mortal. You can have fun with it, but be aware to never ever succumb to it. When it comes to dealing with the beast, you should really be strong in a path in order to keep it in check. You don't want the beast to take the control. So be careful when learning the path. I recommend that you do this much later in your own life. But the path also gives you some nice touches. The basic understanding gives you the touch of pleasure, which basically you can make anyone orgasm with but a touch. At your will, at your command. Even better is the higher understanding of the path that allows you to do the same telepathically over any distance you like. It can be used so creatively. Just imagine a board meeting that is so important and you telepathically make someone orgasm during the speech, embarrassing them in front of everyone, making them lose their precision and just removing them from the board altogether. It's even more embarrassing for vampires, by the way. It's also a bit more difficult to pull off, but you can do that. The daisy chain is the power with more understanding that causes lust and pleasure in an entire room full of people, or even more if you are strong enough. Which is, as I said, very, very useful in many situations. In this case, if you, say, have to disappear from a location unseen, just use this power and everyone will start, corpulating, which makes it extremely difficult to actually go after you. And then there is, of course, the deadening. This is a power that can be extremely agonizing in a special way. We talked about Malpheus and what the demons suffer. With the deadening, you can basically make someone emotionally desensitized and apathic, not feel their body, driving them into suicide rather quickly. And you can, of course, absolutely make a vampire go mad with this, as they won't feel anything from anything anymore. And the final understanding, the greatest understanding of this path, allows you to cause such delight in your victim that they become catatonic from pleasure, unable to move or really do anything but feel. However, I think we have to continue this another time, as we spoke so long already about those powers. I'll give you some time to digest and we'll continue next time. Don't forget on your way out to do the magical thumbs up gesture in order to deactivate the traps and enchantments. Ring the bell for the door to open, because otherwise it just will stay shut. Don't forget to tell your friends about this place, so they owe you, because knowledge is power, and giving them power makes them indebted to you. Tell them about Orcarisper, your guide through the Sanguine Archives, who is the main scribe of the archives, and if they want to help out, they can become subscribes and help copy ancient texts. Good night.